All right, welcome everybody to episode 5 of the Game In podcast. I'm your host Blitz, and as always, I've got my wonderful co-host Jim. Today we've got a pretty fun episode. We're doing something a little different from what we've done in the past. But before we get going, we've been away for a bit. It's been about a month since we posted our last episode. We've both been super busy, crazy things going on in life, but we've had some fun times too. Tell us what you've been up to for the last month, Jim.
Oh man. Yeah, it feels like this honestly, this whole month has been kind of just me touching grass, and sand and dirt and a bunch of other things besides my carpet. so that um so yeah, no, it's been great. It's good to kind of it is healthy, I believe. Just to kind of get out there and just kind of do other things. But I know we are a gaming podcast, right? But it is it is healthy to kind of go out there and just kind of do other things, get your mind off it, because um when you come back, it just becomes like a whole new experience, like you're doing it for the first time again. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Um, so yeah, that's what I've been doing. But I have been playing a couple games. Me and Blitz have been playing Musume. We've been talking constantly about it a lot.
it's
Um,
when you're busy. We were talking a bit about this a bit before we started recording. Uh, when you're busy, mobile gaming is actually way more attractive than trying to sit down at your PC or your console. Like there's something about just being able to like crawl into bed at the end of a long day and go, let me pull up this game on my phone and just play for 15 minutes before I pass out.
mhm.
And that's the niche Uma Musume's filled for me. Like you said, we've been talking a ton about it, but it's been the convenient game the last month.
Right. Yeah, it is one of those games where you just kind of pull up when you're bored and you're like, because it's in your pocket most of the time, right? Your phone's in your pocket most of the time. Um, Especially for me, I was traveling a lot, so it's like, well, I'm in a car, I'm in a train, or I'm in an airplane, right? Um, or I'm somewhere where I'm just sitting down and I'm not really doing anything. Where it's like, well, I can just pull this up. Probably take about 30 minutes of my time, right? And then we'll,
Yep.
we'll call it a day, right? So that's kind of that's kind of where I stand on that.
So
So
let me ask you this. You have a Steam Deck, don't you?
yes.
So my brother recently has gotten really big into like Souls games and stuff, and a huge portion of that has been because he travels a lot and he got a Steam Deck. And so
Hmm.
being able to take it with him and like hop on Elden Ring for 30 minutes in the airport was like a huge thing for him in terms of getting into those games. Um, as you've been traveling and stuff, did you bring the Steam Deck with you? Like, was it an option, or was it you didn't bring that with you because you knew you had something on your phone that could kind of fill those gaps?
So no, well, that wasn't a consideration because of the. So I only took a 2-hour flight, right? And it was one of those things too where while it seems attractive at least for me, right? While it seems attractive at the time playing a video game on the plane, what I've kind of done, right, is you would kind of be like, "Oh, I'm gonna play this one game," right? And then you spend 15 minutes is like, "Okay, I don't know if this is like a little bit of an ADD thing, right? Where it's just like, okay, it's 15 minutes has passed. How long have you been really on the plane, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you've only been on the plane for 5 minutes, right? Right. So it seems like so you're just like, okay, I'm gonna play a different game, and you're swapping between like games, right? And you're just like, I just get tired, and I'm like, I need to go to sleep, and then I go to sleep for like 45 minutes, and I'm like, okay, because this is what happened on my last international flight, right? It's like I would play a game for about 30 minutes, and then I would quit. I would watch something. At the time I was watching, I think I was watching Ted Lasso. I think that's what I was
Love
watching.
Ted Lasso.
That was a great show. And I watched a little bit of that, and then let me tell you, there is one thing I shouldn't have downloaded on my tablet, and I watched it on the plane. Do you know that reality TV show about these
Don't say
Nickelodeon
love.
stars?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Love Island, man.
Oh no, no,
Everyone I know is watching freaking Love Island, and I was all like,
no,
please
no,
don't.
no. No, but it's I was okay. I remember this
But yeah,
very
the
specifically.
Nickelodeon stars.
The Nickelodeon stars, and then it was the Dan Schneider one.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and I was like, I watched that, and then I watched the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix. I was like, this is wildly inappropriate. Now I shouldn't have been. I should
Yeah.
not have been watching this on the plane. All right, people are just like looking at me, like, "What are you watching?" I'm like I was just kind of like spaced out. I was like, I didn't really think about it at the time, right? I was like, oh, that might have not been the best option to watch on a plane,
Yeah.
right? And like little side tangent here. Crunchyroll has been announced for, I think, Delta Airlines or something like that.
Yeah. So the last few Delta flights I've been on have had anime on them in their lineup.
Now that to me is, and now we're not just talking about like anime movies like a Miyazaki movie or anything like that, but like actual like Crunchyroll. You actually have like episodes of a show being shown on there. That to me is kind of cool, but also at the same time,
there's some shows that gotta be censored because
there's some shows that
they censor movies and stuff when they're put on the flight. So there's just anime's something that definitely I don't think a lot of anime fans realize that like stuff that has just gotten normalized in the anime community out in the open is not gonna fly while you're
let me tell you, if I see someone in a Delta flight watching High School DxD on the freaking on the Delta Airlines little tablet they have in front of them, I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'll just give them the hardest stare I've ever given anybody in my life. Like,
you gotta give him the come on man. Come on, man, really?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I've also been playing the Echoes of Wisdom. I don't know if I mentioned that last time.
Oh yeah, Zelda.
For Switch, because on my Switch 2, I was like, well, I could have gotten Donkey Kong. It's like, I really want to play Echoes of Wisdom. I haven't gotten to it yet, and it had the Switch 2 update, right? And I was like, I'll give it a shot, and it's really fun. It fills that puzzle niche that I've been dying for, right?
Okay.
So it's very good. It's one of those things where I'll just pick up every once in a while and be like, okay. I don't think it's a very long game. It's like maybe 20, 30 hours, something like that. So it's not very long.
Yeah, I haven't gotten surprisingly as much as like I love Zelda and my family are big Zelda people. I don't play a lot of Zelda games, so I haven't gotten to Echoes of Wisdom. I played a lot of the handheld ones growing up because it was like easy to get into. But like, yeah, it's one that I saw come out and I was excited about it and I just never got around to it. And I know I'm going to enjoy it when I do sit down to play it, but I just, it's weird. I have to like be in a mood for Zelda. I think the only time I ever was like, oh, I'm playing that Zelda game on release was Breath of the Wild, because it was the first game I got with my Switch, and I got the Switch one on release. And then I loved Breath of the Wild so much that when Tears of the Kingdom came out, it was like, no, come hell or high water, I'm playing this game day one. Like, I went to a midnight release at GameStop and line wrapped around the block for people picking up Tears of the Kingdom.
Do you know what game that is for me? I have yet to touch Red Dead Redemption 2.
I haven't either.
Yeah, it's like I just have to, like, I haven't been in the mood to just like pick it up because I feel like I think I definitely missed the train because that game came out a long time ago at this point, right? But now I'm just like, I know it's a great game and I loved Red Dead Redemption 1, but I just haven't been in the mood to play it.
Yep.
Right. So,
you know what game is feeling that way for me right now? Downloaded on my PlayStation. I know I'm going to love it. Death Stranding 2. I loved the first one. Everyone tells me that the second one is the first game, but better in every single way. And I just have not been in the mood to open that game up and start it. And maybe like, it's weird. You have games that you're going to enjoy and you just stare at them and just don't get around to them.
and you just don't get, and it's like there's also that fear. It's like I'm never gonna get around to playing this,
Yep.
right? And then there's certain games where it's like, you know what, I could live with just not playing it. There's definitely those games, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think another thing that I wanted to make a whole video about this, and I never got around to it, but I think there is something to be said for some games are so big and so daunting that like you just don't want to get to them yet, or you don't want to replay them. Like the example, there's a couple examples I'll give. Elden Ring, adored it, loved it. I can't see myself doing a new game plus run of Elden Ring because there's so much and I want to do everything. Versus Bloodborne is like a 20-hour, 25-hour experience. I've replayed Bloodborne like 8 times. Hollow Knight, Silksong finally got a release date. I'm going to play Silksong. I enjoyed Hollow Knight. I put 90 hours into Hollow Knight. There's another Metroidvania very similar to Hollow Knight, Ender Lilies and Ender Magnolia, that are both like 24 hours to 100%. I've replayed Ender Lilies since beating it, and I'm going to replay Ender Magnolia. I do not think I could bring myself to replay Hollow Knight because it's just so big. And that's kind of how I feel about like Death Stranding, or you talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, I know those are games that I'm going to sink 90 to 100 hours into. And it's like, no, I need to be in a spot where I know I can sink 100 hours into something over a couple weeks, you know?
No, yeah. It's the time commitment now. Speaking though of time commitments though, I was just streaming today of Trails in the Sky, the remake of that RPG, that JRPG.
Yeah.
So the demo came out, and I was playing that earlier today. I've never played it. I have no idea what it's about. And this is one of those games where it's like, I had the same that when we're gonna talk about this in our topic later today. This is the kind of game where I came into it knowing absolutely nothing, right? And I think honestly, I need to do that more often, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. Yeah. So what about you, man?
Well, we talked about a lot of the games I've been playing. I've been busy. I've been not touching grass, but I've been out doing some stuff with family and helping some family with some things. Been doing like some construction stuff. And so I haven't gotten to game a lot, but one thing I did get to do a couple weeks ago was go to the Utah Retro Game Expo, which was awesome. A friend of mine came up from California to go to it. And he came last year, and we went this year. This year was its 3rd year, and it was twice as big as it was last year. And last year they told us it was twice as big as it was before. So it's growing incredibly fast. And it's really cool to see it growing, because there used to be another expo like that in Utah that didn't do super well. But like I was talking to a lot of the vendors this year, and some of them were coming from California, some of them were coming from Oregon, Idaho. There was somebody from Arizona. So like the entire West Coast basically was kind of coming together for this thing. And it's good to see people travel for an event like that, whether it be a vendor or a buyer. And it's going to be really fun to see like 5 years down the line, like, is this going to be like this massive? I don't think it'll ever be as big as like the Oregon Retro Game X or Portland, because that's like the biggest one in the country. But a lot of people there were all like, yeah, you know, unless you want to travel out east, like during the year, it's like you've got Portland and then a bunch of tiny little things. And they were like stoked. They're like, no, this Utah Expo is actually up and coming really fast. And it's this, a lot of people are basically liking having a second big event of the year next to Portland. But I got some really fun things while I was there. So my friend Solo usually goes and vins at these kind of events. So he he brought me some stuff to help fill out my game collection. So I've been trying to collect every Final Fantasy disc. So this is the Final Fantasy Complete Edition up to Shadowbringers. So this is the last disc that was made for Final Fantasy 14 because they went all digital at Endwalker. So I've almost got every Final Fantasy 14 disc. I'm missing Shadowbringers, and then I'm missing a couple of complete versions that came out with each one. He brought me this, which was the final PS2 disc of Final Fantasy 11. This is the Vanadil collection. And he brought me Wild Arms on PS1, which is one of my favorite JRPGs. If you've never touched Wild Arms, they're all on the PlayStation Store. You can get them for pretty cheap these days. But like, if you like Final Fantasy, like classic Final Fantasy, Wild Arms is 100% a JRPG series to check out. And then it's no secret that my favorite Final Fantasy is 13. I got Japanese copies of 13 and 13-2. And then this was probably my favorite thing I found at the expo, a Japanese copy of Nier Replicant.
Ooh, very pretty.
So Nier Replicant originally only came out in Japan. We didn't get the Replicant version until the remake. And then my friend Solo recently told me about Video Games Plus, VGP. If you don't know who VGP is, they reprint old games officially. And so they just did a reprint. This is a sealed copy of Nier for PS3, the original. And then the last thing I got was a print from an artist.
Ooh, very nice.
This is a hand-drawn pencil detail. You can get in and see all the little details of Lightning, because I love Final Fantasy 13. And it was a thing where you could buy a couple prints, get one free, and like my brother wanted to get some prints, I wanted to get some prints, and that was the one I chose. And yeah, it was a really good time. It was 2 days. It was a Friday, Saturday. And it was like, met some really cool artists. Oh, I also got, where's my water bottle? I got these stickers there for my water bottle. I got a Zelda one, and I got a Over the Garden Wall.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, it was just a fun weekend. It was a nice, relaxing thing. And it was one of those things where it's like, man, it's nice to get around like other people who are stoked about games and talk. Like, I know you're going to PAX this coming weekend. And it's this cool thing. Like, I met this one vendor there who was an artist for Hearthstone, and just talked to him for like an hour and a half. Like, he's worked for like Epic Games, working for Microsoft right now, and Activision Blizzard, and like talking to him about video games and his experience and like character designs that he loves and stuff. And it was like, man, like, that's what's great about these conventions, because like, you and I get to have these conversations, and I have these conversations on like stream and stuff, but it's nice to get together with people face to face, and hang out and chat and look for rare games and do stuff like that.
No, for sure. Let me tell you something. It's did I tell you there was at the soccer con? What was soccer con this year? It was in April, I think. I don't know when did we start this podcast? It wasn't.
I think we started in June.
Okay, so this was beforehand. So, for a while, I took a break from 14 between 7.1 and 7.2, which granted wasn't very long, but I mean, I kind of wasn't planning on playing again for a while, right? Until like maybe catch up on the patch, and that was kind of it, right?
Yeah.
What made me really interesting, you touched on the community part, right? There was a Final Fantasy 14 meetup that kind of was like, this is why I remember I liked, going to these meetups, going to these going to these conventions in general, right? Because SoccerCon was an anime convention, but 14 is very anime adjacent, right?
Very much so.
So it was a good time. I got this. I don't know if I've ever showed this off. It's on my table right now. This is, if my camera can focus. This is the Asm crystal, right? So
Oh
this was
yeah,
just handed to me. This was just handed to me by like random by someone. He was
I've
just
got
like,
one hanging right here, an Asm crystal.
yeah, and it was like he just handed me like here, have this for free. And this was a culture I didn't even know existed until I showed up to one of these meetups. They were like handing me stickers of their Warrior of Light, right? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I don't have nothing to give you. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
so it's like I didn't know this was a thing. It's like um so when I go to PAX, I probably still won't have anything to give anybody by the time. Maybe I don't know. I think I have a couple sketches of my Warrior of Light or previous Warriors of Light
We
that I
gotta
could probably.
we just gotta get you on like Fourth Wall or something, one of those like streamer merch sites. Um
Mhm.
and we'll just get you like a gang sheet of like 30 stickers for like $5. You just upload your picture and send it off and they'll
Do,
send
do
it
you
to
know
you.
what? It's funny. It's this is it a rivet printer, rabbit, whatever the kind of, they have a special printer that
Cricket?
this person you Cricut. It was a Cricut printer,
Yeah.
right? She there was this person that I met at that meetup. I don't remember call her name, but she was like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about me running out of stickers. I'll just go home and print them on my printer." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "These people were prepared. Okay, let me tell you, these so, like you don't think about it, right? But
The
these
real
people
life
that show
crafters, man. The real life
no, they are. Let
crafters.
me tell you, they really are. Like I think the 14 players that show up to these conventions and these meetups are the more arts and crafty kind of persons I've ever met in my life for
Yeah.
gamers, right? And it's impressive, right? So it just astonishes me. So
Man, the community of 14 is somehow simultaneously the best and worst community. Um but it makes such a huge difference in like the desire to play that game long term. I mean, we've talked about it before, but like we were in the same FC on the game for years. Uh
mhm.
and when that FC dissolved, we won't get into it, but like it killed it killed my desire to play the game for
Mhm.
like a year and a half. And I still don't think I've ever gotten as daily playing into it as I was back then. Um, when like we had that really strong group that we got on and we hung out and we talked and we played. Um, but yeah, it's interesting how community makes a game like that. Um, but yeah, I've definitely been much more into single player games as I've pulled back. Um, and one of the best single player games I've played in a very long time, we're actually going to talk about tonight. Uh, so this is our first game club episode. Uh, game club, we're calling that like it's like a book club. You know, both of us will play a game. Every once in a while, we might pull a guest on who we also know played the game to kind of give us some insights and their thoughts on things. But for our very first episode of Game Club, and it won't be separate from the Game In podcast, it'll just be kind of a segment that we do sometimes. We were going to talk about Expedition 33, Clair Obscur. Um, if you haven't played the game or you intend to play the game, uh, full warning, this is not a spoiler-free discussion. We are going to be getting into it. We are going to be talking everything about the game, the story, the characters, the gameplay, things we loved, things we thought could be better. But we're gonna talk everything Expedition 33. Before we really get into the nitty-gritty of it though, I wanted to give a summary of our thoughts. Jim, give me your 1 minute review of Expedition 33 and a score out of 10.
Score out of 10, 9 out of 10, in my opinion.
Okay.
And then my review is the best JRPG I've played since. Hold on, I have to look at the date of this. April 2017.
Okay. What'd you play in April 2017?
Persona 5.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So we share a score. My score is a 9 out of 10. And my review of Clair Obscur is a game that is incredible and could have been a perfect game had it had one more year to cook. Is my thoughts. I think if they had a little more time, I think there's lots of evidence that it is a unfinished game. And I'll back that up as we get into it, but I think there was more that they wanted to do that they didn't get around to.
Okay.
And it kept it from getting that 10 out of 10 from me.
And honestly, I'm glad we are doing this discussion. I don't know. It's been like what? How many weeks? It's been like almost a month for you. Since
it's been about a month since I finished.
And I think it's been about 3-4 months since I finished it, right? And I'm glad we're having this discussion now, right? A little bit down the line, because and I've seen this with other people on the internet, when you finish a game, and I'm guilty to this too. Your emotions are very high, right? And you are looking at this from kind of like a siloed kind of vision in a way, right?
Yeah.
And now it's had time to kind of think in my mind on what I really think about this game, right? Because if you were to ask me, maybe like a week after I finished this game, I probably would have given it a 10 out of 10, right? But there are things here and there where I have kind of thought about over the past couple months where it's like, you know what? Yeah, that probably could have been better, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm glad that we had some time to kind of think about this, process it, chew on what Expedition 33 really was, and we can talk about it. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh man, I had a thought and it just escaped me. You're gonna have to edit this silence out once I figure out what it was that I was gonna say. Or keep it in and people can watch the wheels turn in my head. But kind of as we're getting ready to talk about this, you mentioned the idea of going into a game blind. So
right.
Was that Expedition 33 for you? You went in completely blind, not knowing anything?
Yes. It was completely blind.
So how did you hear about the game?
So, okay. Let me clarify on blind, right? I watched when did the first trailer get announced?
It was the Summer Games or it was a Game Awards?
It was Summer Game. It was one of the two, right? It's one of the Jeff Keighley specials.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, cool, a JRPG. I was like, that's cool. I don't know if I'm ever going to play that. I'm going to be honest with you, right? And I think people had the same kind of mindset as well, too, because they didn't really. What do I want to say? I'm going to try to choose my words carefully before I get canceled on the internet. Expedition 33 fans. It just looked like a JRPG, but it looked cool enough where it's like, it was a little bit different, right? It had, we're going to talk about gameplay in a little bit, but, it wasn't just, you press one button and you just watch the person do something. You can actually like parry, you can actually dodge. There's like some active, combat mechanics that you can do, right? And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. It's like, I don't know if I'll ever get around to it, but good on them for making that game, right? It wasn't until the casting for the game that I saw, and I don't know if they mentioned the cast for the game during that trailer or not. But obviously, it didn't really stick with me that well. They had Ben Starr on it. That was the first one.
Yep.
They had Daredevil, Charlie Cox. I almost forgot his name. And then they had Jennifer English, who was the voice actress for Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3, right? So I was like, okay, there's some weight on this. There's some meat on the bones of this game, right?
Yeah.
And there's also, what was his name? Renoir's voice actor.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. That was the one I was like, they got Andy Serkis. I was like, okay. They got some meat on this bones, right? So, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And that's where it's like I didn't really know. I know it was kind of like saw the Eiffel Tower. It's like I don't know what that means, but it's like whatever. But yeah, I came in and honestly, it was I need to do more of that. Right.
Yeah.
I need to just like not know what this game is about, and I need to see. But it's kind of a double-edged sword because if you don't know what the game is about, how would you know to play it? But I also saw I was like, oh my god, you got to play Expedition 33. It's like the best thing I've ever seen. I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
So
I'll try it out.
I had the opposite experience coming into Expedition 33. So I remember the trailer coming out and immediately recognizing Ben Starr's voice in the trailer. And the thing was this trailer was coming out post FF16, which within the Final Fantasy community online, there were a lot of people who didn't like 16 because it wasn't turn-based. This is a thing that you will commonly see amongst Final Fantasy people is the disdain for the non-turn-based Final Fantasies. I personally loved 16. I'm fine with action Final Fantasy. I think no matter what Final Fantasy you enjoy, you're an FF fan. But it was this really weird thing because everyone loved Ben Starr's performance. There was no one who disliked Clive in of people who played FF16. And it was like this really weird discussion that started very immediately of, oh man, they've got Ben Starr, but it's going to be a turn-based game. So like, this is the Final Fantasy that 16 should have been, was like the discussion. And like, there was so much hype and so much pressure on Expedition 33 within the greater Final Fantasy community. Like, this game felt like the second coming of Christ. People talking about it. Like, before we had a release date, like people being like, oh, but Expedition 33 is going to come out. And even post it coming out, there's been a lot of discussion that I do want to hit on later of like people being like, oh, see, Expedition 33 has proven to Square Enix that like they need to make a turn-based Final Fantasy in the modern era. Like, it has been this huge discussion. So for me, it was kind of unavoidable hearing about this game. But obviously there wasn't a ton of stuff like out before the game came out. And I avoided spoilers before actually playing the game. But in looking into the game and looking into the development of it, if you go on their website, there was like a section where it showed all the developers and they had listed underneath them what games inspired them to make this game. And on that list, they have like Nier Automata, Final Fantasy, the Persona games. Like they're very open about what inspired this game. And they were very open about that they had the goal of making a classic turn-based like JRPG style game, like what they grew up playing on the PS2 and the PS1. And so I feel like I knew what to expect going into this game. And I also had a friend who hadn't played a ton of JRPGs who played it and was obsessed with it. And the way I kind of describe it was like his reaction to the game was what like other friends had when they played their first Final Fantasy. Like I was seeing him react to this game the way people who played Final Fantasy X and it was their first Final Fantasy, the way people who played 7 and it was their first Final Fantasy, and it was all like, man, no, like I just want more of this thing that has like changed my life. And it was all like, oh, okay, this game is like special in some way, shape, or form. Right. Like, and like I went in like knowing what their inspirations were. It was like, I was like, okay, there are high expectations on this game, and everyone I'm talking to, it seems they met those expectations. And it's all like, another example I can think of was Sea of Stars came out a couple years ago, and Sea of Stars, a lot of people are like, oh, it's like Chrono Trigger, one of the most beloved JRPGs of all time. And there were super high expectations on that game. And for some people, they loved it. For other people, they were all like, I went in expecting Chrono Trigger, and that is not what I got. And so I thought we were going to have a repeat. I thought it was going to be the same thing, but nothing but just overwhelming praise. And I've met people who have some qualms with the game. Like, I know people who wanted a cleaner, more classic turn-based. They didn't want the action stuff in, but like they like those. I saw those complaints, but for the most part, people are all like, nah, man, I'm here for it. And so I was like, yeah, I've got to play this game. I've got some expectations. I know what it's going to be. And it sounds like they're going to pull it off. And I feel like for the most part, they did. But yeah, it's just been, I feel like whether you know what you're getting into or you don't, like, it's a good enough game that it delivers from either direction.
Right. And you mentioned the people that, I looked at the people that were involved with this game too, and a lot of them came from Ubisoft.
Yeah,
right?
Ubisoft devs.
Yeah, and I know, and this is a good way to segue to this discussion about the kind of overall design of the world, right, and the setting and stuff like that. Um, and you're kind of jumping ahead of the story here, going from the twist in the end of Act Two, right, where it was like, yeah, it was a painting all along. There were hints here and there, right, that it was a painting.
So
right?
I called that in the first area of the game.
You did?
Yeah, like I have the stream to like prove it. We're sitting there playing, and I think it was like right after you get Lune back. And you're fighting that first boss, and she says something like, I can't remember what she says, but she mentioned something about chroma, and like I'm just looking at everything and I go, oh, we're in a painting, aren't we? And I was like, don't tell me if I'm right about that, chat, but I'm like 95% sure we are inside a painting, and that's what's going on. And it's like all this stuff, like they say, let's spill some ink when they go to like fight someone or stuff.
Right.
And like just the aesthetics of things, it was like, nah, yeah, we're in a painting. And like I didn't necessarily get all the details of it, but no, like that twist I kind of saw coming from a mile away.
Yeah, no, I saw it in Act 2. I forgot what part it was, but it came really apparent during when you're going up to the paintress and seeing all that kind of stuff, right? It's like,
yeah.
I was like, we're in a painting, aren't we? I was like, well, we're gonna find out, right? And this was the there was also a really big cliche. I kind of knew this was happening. And it was like, when you went to go fight the paintress, then you eventually do kill her, right? In quotation marks, kill her, but you're really just kicking her out of the painting, right? And I was like, ooh, that wasn't the right thing to do. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember having a discussion with a friend at some point while I was in the middle of Act 2 and saying, oh, the paintress isn't the final boss. And they're all like, what makes you say that? And I said, well, they're trying to make like a JRPG, like, and like I understand it's not a Japanese company, it's not a JRPG, but it was like, no, this is their inspiration and stuff, and it's like, we're gonna defeat the paintress, and that's gonna unleash some new eldritch horror. Like, I don't know what it's gonna be, but I was like, if you grew up playing JRPGs, you know that the first enemy that is presented to you as the enemy is never the actual big bad. Like, you kill them and you always unleash something worse. As to the way that ended up being presented, I do feel they did like a very fresh take on that idea. Like, it wasn't some like all-powerful god that showed up. It was all like the whole thing about the family and stuff. I thought it was really cool to be like, oh no, the new eldritch horror is her husband, not like an actual god or something like that.
Right.
But
I'll go ahead.
but I was gonna say, so like as we're talking about like this idea of the painting and being
Mhm.
in it, I want to talk about that setting, the canvas, like the world of the
Mhm.
game, um, and kind of what are your thoughts about it? What I mean, was there a specific area that was like your favorite? Uh,
Mhm.
I know for me, like from a pure aesthetic design point, one of the most beautiful games I've ever played.
Mhm.
I think the canvas was beautiful. I think all the different areas um, were super unique. I think probably Flying Waters was one of my favorites, the most standout. Um, but I think it was a really unique setting for a game. Um, Especially like once you do know the twist, it's all like, oh no, like from a lore perspective, it makes sense that each area is so unique and so different
Mhm.
because it's a painted place.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and before I talk about the setting, and I wanted to go back before we were talking about the world, and I was talking about the Ubisoft employees, right?
oh, that's right.
And there's a important aspect that I was like, this is very reminiscent of Assassin's Creed to me, in the way that it was at least the first three, right? It
Yeah,
was the distinction between Desmond's story, like the real life, right? And the whatever,
yeah.
the
Ezio.
previous assassins, Ezio's or Altair's, or I forgot the third person's name. Anyway, besides the point. Um, it was very similar to that. It's like, oh, okay, I can see them just trying to expand the world from, you know, like if they make a sequel to a Clear Obscure, whatever they want to call it, right? They could have it like, so they've already set this up, right? Where you have the painters and the writers, right?
That's I I really want a story with the writers. Like
Right.
I want to
So
see what that's all about.
it's very similar to the Assassins and the Templars, right? Where you have that kind of story, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and you can see it getting set up that way in particular, because it's like, oh, now we can go into another painting or whatever you want to call it, or whatever you want to do. It can be different characters, but you can still relate back to, these are the painters, these are the writers,
Yeah.
and that's what it is. So that's why it was kind of reminiscent of it to me, right? So um and them being Ubisoft, I'm sure that's what they wanted to do in the first place, but eventually they stopped. I know they still do the story. I haven't played Assassin's Creed since like maybe I think four, right? But they stopped doing the real life story after. Well, I wouldn't say they stopped doing the Desmond, whatever you want to call it, the story, that
Yeah.
storyline, right? Um,
Which honestly was where I fell off of Assassin's Creed because
when Desmond died,
I was interested in the real life story. I thought they were building to something.
right? But then they saw. I mean, to be fair, a lot of people uh were in it for the assassins, right? And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess that's where the money was. But there was a story to be told, and I think that's what they're trying to do, something very similar here, right?
Yeah.
Um, um, in terms of what my favorite, I don't know what my favorite place was. The first place you land, I forgot the name of it. It was a war torn area right after Verso joins you. That first area, right?
Oh, right at the beginning of Act Two,
Right at the beginning of
the
Act Two. I forgot the
Forgotten
name of it.
Battlefield.
The Forgotten Battlefield. I That was probably one of my favorites. Um, One of the things that pops out to me also was Miles Tower, right? As the little her side quest, right? Going up that tower.
So
Um,
we'll touch on it later. Uh, I loved that area, and it is
mhm.
simultaneously one of my biggest qualms with the game.
Okay, I think we have the same qualm then, because I think,
That
or
it
maybe
shouldn't
very
have been a side area.
yeah, that it shouldn't have been a side
Yeah,
area. Yeah,
yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it later.
yeah. Um,
um,
but there I'm trying to think of other things. I think I couldn't the place where the axon where they had multiple emotions, that was kind of like
Oh, the
eh to
masks.
me. The mask was kind of added, but the other one was pretty cool. Um so that's one of the areas, and then like you said, the water area was probably the more but yeah, overall I think it was a like very very um and they had to do this on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Because it is when you discover it's like, oh, this is a painting. It's like, of course, this is supposed to be like a magical, and it's supposed to look very beautiful. Like that's what they're trying to achieve, right? And they did, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and yeah, I think from like a level design standpoint, like not even like visual aesthetic, but just like the actual design of the levels, I think that is a spot they really excelled at in the game. Like I think exploration was fun. I actually wanted to, like, if I found a little side path with maybe a little stronger enemy or like a little puzzle, like I felt like they did a really good job of making me want to actually 100% levels and find things.
mm-hmm,
Um, but also beyond the levels, like in the world setting, and the aesthetics of it, uh, the gestrels are a really fun race to exist in the world.
mm-hmm,
We find all sorts of little gestural places. We find the gestural arenas, the gestural beaches, um, and I think gestrals were really cool. Uh, and like they made the world feel alive. There was also a second race um, that existed at Minoko Station. Um, that like I can't remember their name.
I
And
call them
that
the Yetis.
yeah,
They're
they're
essentially the Yeti.
yeah, they're kind of like Yetis. That was really cool that I wish they were more present. Like I wish
mm-hmm,
they had as big of an influence as the Gestrals. Um, and this is one of many things I'll point to. I said this at the beginning, where I feel like the game was a bit unfinished. And I don't mean unfinished as in uh like there was like stuff that I'm not talking like Xenogears unfinished where it's like a rushed disc 2. Um, but it felt like, oh, they wanted to do something with these guys. And last podcast we talked about funding for games.
mm-hmm.
And I truly wonder if the people funding this game turned around and said, cool, we need returns on profits. Like, put the game out, sell it. We need money back. And if they either like ran out of funding or like they were at the edge of their time to develop. And they've even said as much, that like initially they were going to try and work on a DLC when the game came out, but because they got such a good reaction to the game and it sold well and stuff, they've turned around and they've started doing patches to the main game and adding
Mm-hmm.
features and stuff that they didn't get to add. Um, but so the Yetis are one of those examples where it's all like, man, no, I feel like the Gestral Village is really cool and it's this really fleshed out big area. I feel like they wanted Minoko Station to probably feel that way too with the
Mm-hmm.
Yetis. And it's all like, oh, we've got to cut some of this for time. And so there's only like 4 Yetis you can talk to instead of the vast Gestral Village, you know?
Right. Um. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things that were. I think Act 3 is our biggest gripe with the game. I think for both of us, one of our biggest gripes, right? At least for
Well,
me. I can't
and
speak for you.
we probably have different gripes with Act 3, but Act
Hmm.
3 is like kind of where they come from.
Yeah. But now that we're talking about Act 3, let's talk about the story, right? Because I thought it was really, really good, and that's what you kind of need in this kind of game, right? You
Yeah.
need your story to be good. Um, I think there was, coming in here with no expectations. The shock value was there. right?
Yeah.
So at the end of and you know, we're talking about shock value. We're talking about the end of Act One, where you basically Gustav gets Sean Beaned, right? Um, and
It's Sean Bean. I love that that is like, everyone knows what we mean when we say that. And I love
yeah,
that everyone knows what we mean.
and he's basically gone, right? And you're like, and there's, you know, there when you think about it now, there are hints. It's like, oh yeah, when am I gonna unlock Gustav's other skills, right? Because you see them all like crossed out, right? And I was like, oh okay,
Yeah.
they don't
So,
exist.
so I had an opposite reaction to that. It wasn't that like, oh, those were hints that he was going to die. I thought those were all hints that he was going to come back. I was convinced the entire game that at some point Gustav was going to come back, not really be dead. And there were two major things. It was all those locked skills that I was like, oh yeah, he's got to come back so we can get those skills. But the other thing is there's a gestural merchant that when you meet him, it says, oh, you have to recruit a character to buy whatever it is that he's selling. And he's selling Gustav hairstyles and stuff. And I had gotten an achievement that said that I unlocked every character. And so I was all like, oh, I know I have everyone, but this gestural won't let me buy his stuff until I have this character in my party. So Gustav has got to come back so I can buy this stuff. When really it's just a weird programming thing and I had to buy that stuff before Gustav ever disappeared. And so I was convinced he was coming back, not that those were hints that he was going to disappear.
No, and you know, now that we're talking about that topic, right? About the little gameplay, like, no, I wouldn't say hints, but it kind of was like, why is he different? Like, if you look at the weapons, right?
Yeah.
There's no flavor text. Like here's this other special ability that comes with this weapon,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, well, that's weird. Then when you unlock first, so they have those flavor texts where it's like, oh yeah, you can attack twice with this weapon, right?
Yep.
Or so I was like, huh, guess he's not coming back. I was like,
Yeah.
I guess he's really so yeah, no, that's but yeah, let's talk about Act One. The world at the beginning was very, you know, it was a very sad moment. I want to talk about the prologue for a bit. Not the prologue that comes after too,
Yeah.
but the when you first start the game.
Lumiere.
And Lumiere, right? With Sophie and Gustav, and it kind of sets up the world and kind of brings you into that kind of emotional that to me, because it did tear me up a little bit, right? And I can say they did all that in like maybe 30 minutes to an hour.
So
And that in and of itself is impressive to me.
in my
right?
opinion, that opening scene, that section of Lumiere, is top 3 video game openings of all time. Others that I would put up there with it, Last of Us 1. Not to give any spoilers to Last of Us 1, but if you know the opening scene to Last of Us 1, you know what level I am putting this on. Like, it sets the emotional stakes very early. It gives you this gorgeous area to run around. But like, there's this tension, you know, something's happening. You don't know what's happening, which is very similar to Last of Us 1. It's like something is going on and you're trying to figure it out, and then you get to the docks and it happens. And you're just like, man, the gommage. Like, and the thing is like, I knew what the gommage was because in the very first trailer for the game, they tell you. Like, if you've seen the trailer for the game, you know what's about to happen. But they still sell you on the emotion of it and why it sucks so bad.
Right.
And that is such an accomplishment. Is like, I knew it was coming. I was all like, oh, Sophie's about to go Maj. Like, they flat out say it. And like, if you haven't seen a trailer, you don't know what that means. But like, I knew exactly what it meant. And yet still, with, like you said, in 30 minutes, I was all like, man, what the hell?
Yeah, no, that it was and and the part where I'm not going to talk about too much of what happens a little bit after that, where it's like you're just going and meeting with all these expeditioners, because honestly I was like, okay, you're just getting ready to leave. There's nothing much to really kind of, unless you have anything you want to touch on that. I was like, it was kind of like, hey, say your goodbyes and we're gonna get going. That was kind of like one of those kind of things, right?
So I will say, I think the thing about that part, and I kind of include it in that opening setup, is that part I didn't expect, because it really sells you on this idea that you're going to have like 15 people with you on this expedition.
Mm-hmm.
And the shock value that it gives you going from that to the beach.
Yeah, Normandy. Yep.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
And that was for me one of the most surprising parts of the game. Like, that was one of the least expected things. I expected that maybe we were going to have this group for a little bit, and then like something would happen and people would get separated. I did not expect 30 seconds into the expedition, cool, everybody's gone and you're a sole survivor kind of thing.
I want to touch on this before I'm going to retract my previous statement that I just said. I think that section is actually pretty important, and here's why. Because of what just happened between Sophie dying, right, and everybody gomaging, and everybody dying on that beach.
Yeah.
Right? If you put them next to each other, that I think that's too much. You needed that section to let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
So
well, and also I think because right after the beach, you have the moment with Gustav where he's about to off himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you have this guy who just lost Sophie, and you see him go through that little moment with the expedition, and you're like, oh no, this dude has a purpose. Like this, you kind of get this sentiment of like, this dude like knows what he's gonna do with the last year of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch that get ripped away on the beach. Like this is like he's lost everything, and I think if you don't have that little bit of setup to understand, like, no, this is what he's hanging on to, it would have been too much too fast, like you're saying, and it would have been like, oh no, I don't get why Gustav is so depressed. Like, yes, a lot of depressing stuff just happened, but like it's almost like a John Wick thing, where like you get John those couple scenes with the dog and you realize why the dog meant so much to him, because like that was his hope after the worst day of his life. And that's what the expedition was for Gustav. You have to have those couple moments of like, oh no, there's some hope for this guy, even though he just had the worst day of his life.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then this is also where the world starts to open up. You meet with Lune, right? And you fight your first boss, right? You fight the boss over there. I forgot what it was.
It's the two-handed guy. You refight him like 7 times in the game.
Okay,
he's all over.
Why I didn't. That's why it wasn't very.
It's like Evreek or something like that.
Yeah. So, and then we'll talk about the gameplay in a little bit. So I won't touch on that too much. And then what kind of, I don't know how you felt about this, but before Gustav was kind of gonna off himself, like you said, he just all of a sudden he closes his eyes and Luna's like there, and I'm like, now that I think about that, I was like, where did she come from? Was she just like following him the whole entire time? Like, did she have not said hello? You just followed him?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
Well, and what's interesting is that is a fairly classic JRPG trope of like your main character being lost and a second character just finding you in the first area of the game and being like, oh, we got separated, but good thing I found you as I was roaming through the woods. Like,
Good thing I stopped you just in time before you.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I feel like that whole opening is really strong. Um, the and I feel like Act One. I feel like I went through Act One really fast. Like from a story perspective, I feel like Act One was just so solid of going from moment to moment to moment. And there are a couple of little side areas in Act One that honestly I missed. Like, and I ended up going back to them way later in the game. And this is one of my qualms with the game, but we can get into it a bit later. But I feel like Act One just propels you forward so fast. And I think I did Act One because I was streaming it. I did Act One in like 2 streams. And then I want to say Act Two took me like 3 or 4. And Act Two may just be a longer act, like in terms of actual gameplay, but I don't feel like it is that much longer. But I feel like Act One narratively is the strongest of the 3. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
I think there's an argument, but for me, I think Act Two was my favorite.
Okay.
I think Act Two. I think they were really. I liked. I like that they kind of. I like that they killed Gustav off. Right. I'm gonna be honest with you. And I don't think anybody's gonna disagree with me. But it was very. Gustav wasn't the main character. It was always a Mael story.
Yeah.
Right. And it was used in a way. I don't know if you want to compare it to The Last of Us, but very similar to that, right?
Yeah.
With Joel and Ellie, right? So in a way, and then Act Two, it became a coming of age kind of story at that point, right?
Yeah.
In a way. So I feel like Act Two and with Verso being there and providing like a foil to Mael
Yeah.
Was perfect, right? And going through, there was a lot more. I feel like there was a lot more wit as well in Act Two compared to Act One. It was it it slowed itself down, but in a good way, right? And it had to do that, right? It had to explore the world even more. It had to explain, we need meet my favorite character, Monoko, right?
Yeah.
That was my favorite character in Act Two. Um, and you start to notice that the world is starting to explain itself, right? And you start to get hints here and there. It's like, especially with the family, right?
Yeah.
When you introduce Verso, especially when you get to Old Lumiere, I think this is a good turning point where it's like there's a line where they subtly say it, right? Even though you know, like when you think it's like, oh, Alicia's Mael, right? That's where I'm getting with this. Um, they slowly start to do it, and then when you get to Old Lumiere, when Renoir is gonna attack Mael, I think that was the scene, and then first of all, was like, move, Alicia, right? And you're like, that's Alicia, right? But it's like,
Yeah.
oh, who's this person, right? So you start to think a lot about these things, and I think this is when the game really does start because now these characters have room to interact with each other more so than it did in Act One, right? And
Yeah.
they can build upon each other, right? Than they did in Act One. Um, and that's important because I don't know if you've listened to the interviews with Charlie Cox at all about saying is like, yeah, I only went in for like 2 days and I was
Yeah.
done.
It was like a 1 day or 2 day, 8-hour thing. And he's like, I feel like a fraud because you all love this character.
Right.
And I didn't
So
do a whole ton. So I'll tell you. So my problem with Act Two is kind of that it's slowed down, but it's I think story-wise, the story was fantastic of Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
Where I had trouble was the world. And here's what I mean by that is Act 2, things kind of open up. You've got SKA can swim now, and you can go to all these like bonus locations. But there's not really ever a reason to go to these bonus locations. And I'm gonna jump around a bit, because where this is kind of like a gameplay design thing, but in Act 3, with the characters, you get like those closing quests.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk more about this later, but like you get these closing quests that take you to areas
Right.
that you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have gone to otherwise. And Act 2 has areas like that where you could have been like during the character reputation quests, rather than just talking to people at camp and your reputation going up, it could have been like, no, let's go to Falling Leaves. No,
Mm-hmm.
let's go to Yellow Harvest. Let's go to like, the game could have brought you to those areas. And Act 2 just has so many areas that like you go to and there's a chromatic enemy in it. And like, that's all there is. And it just kind of, it was like, for me, there was like an aimlessness to Act 2 when it came to the world exploration of like, why am I doing this? And I went and just pushed the story forward because I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing otherwise, even though I
Mm-hmm.
had access to all these things. And it was just kind of odd. And I think I'll get a little more thorough into that kind of stuff. But that was like the issue with Act 2 for me, was it was like, man, I feel like I should be doing main story, but there's all this extra stuff I can go to now. But why am I going to it? Or why would I go to it? That like, I feel like Act 1 kept you a little more on the rails of, there was a bonus area here and there. But like some of them were marked with danger. So like you didn't feel like you needed to go to it. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think there is, but I think it's just the mindset of the gamer playing that,
Yeah.
right? Because there are some people. I'm not one of those people. I'm just gonna go and do the main story at this point, right? I'm just doing the main story, and then they're like, I'll just get to it when I get to it, if I ever cross cross to it, right?
Yeah.
But because this is now, see, I think this is also, like you said, this is a design choice, right? I didn't have to grind at all in Expedition 33, right?
Yeah.
Now, if this was a different type of JRPG, let's say in the 90s, where you're like, okay, maybe I have to grind a little bit, right? I can see where those places would pop up and they would become useful,
Yeah.
right? Um,
I
but
only really grinded once, and it was towards the end of Act 3. And it was for Simon. And we can talk about that when we get to gameplay.
mhm.
But I agree. I never had to grind like for the main story.
Right, and I think that's what it was going for. It's like it was for the people that had the open world mind. That's what
Yeah.
I'll call it, right? And it was for those people, and I'm kind of glad that they did, because it was a good way to help explore the world. It was a good way to even bring, because there are some places that it was just one scene, right? It was just one area. You
Yeah.
just walk around it, and then that was it. But that scene, or that kind of that box, right? We'll call it that
So
box, right?
my friend referred to them as diorama areas, and I
There you
like
go.
that.
Mm-hmm. So in those areas where it was just like one area and then you're just walking around it, those usually had what's it call it, the diaries, right? The
Yeah.
logs. Um, and those are really cool if you're into that. You want to expand the world a little bit, but they aren't required, right?
Yeah.
And those worlds weren't required. There was another place where you had this white Nevron. Um, there was a couple of these where they had white Nevrons, right?
Yeah.
And chromatic bosses where it's nice to do, right? But they don't really add anything to the story, which I can see where your gripe is with that because it's like maybe you could have done more with that. But at the same time, those are just like, you want to do this, go ahead. You can do that. You can get off the beaten trail, right?
Yeah.
And this is just for you. But the most people, I didn't have this issue because I was like, I'm just gonna do MS. I'm just gonna do the main story, um, and just shoot through it. And maybe by the before I finish the game, I'll just kind of loop around and just do them all, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
and I think for me, what it is because like if you think of like the PS1 JRPGs or even the SNES area, they do that where they give you those things that are like exactly what you're saying, that kind of just for you if you want to go do this. But it's always in the final act of the game. It's always in like disc 3 or disc 4 or whatever, where the world really opens up and suddenly you have an airship and you can go everywhere and you can do this bonus stuff. And they did that in Act 3 of Expedition 33. It just feels like they did it in Act 2 as well. And I think that's where it was weird for me, was it was all like, why is the world opening up so soon? And then it was like weird because like you point out the white Nevrons, you can find the white Nevron quest in Act 3. And it's all like, oh, so I've been meeting all these white Nevrons before I meet this guy who explains the point of them. And it's like, I don't know. I kind of wish I would have known about them before I could run into them. But it was just kind of weird. It was just kind of weird for me. But I get what you're saying. Like, it's a mindset thing. It's a mindset thing. And maybe I've been conditioned into like this weird completionist nature because of trophies and all the other stuff through the years.
Right.
But yeah, it's just that like the world opened up in this way that like distracted from doing the story, and I just kind of felt aimless at certain times in Act 2. Whereas like Act 3, it was weird because it was like Act 3 does the same thing, but it was like, oh no, I know I'm at the end of the game. I know I'm in go do bonus content mode. Where I didn't feel that way in Act 2. And I guess what I'm saying is a gripe with the world, not a gripe with the story, if that makes sense. Like the story of Act 2, awesome. Start to finish, all those story beats, phenomenal. It was like a gameplay and a world thing for me in Act 2.
And, you know, if you think about it, right, the difference between Act 2 and Act 3 in the world, there's only like maybe like a handful of places that you can visit. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right. So really in Act 2, that's when the game really starts and that's where the world opens up. Right. And that's why, you know, in Act 3, when we're going to talk about this now, when Act 3 came around, right? Because I was so conditioned for another like several places that you had to visit, right? In Act 3. In Act 3, it just says, hey, go to Lumiere and finish the game.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I feel like I have to do more. Right. So I actually, this was the only time I Googled it, right? I Googled, what do I do in Act 3? Right? What should I do in Act 3? And they're like, oh, you should hit on, and it was a Reddit post. It's like, you should probably do Mael's one. And which we're going to talk about in just a little bit because I think, we can talk about it now.
Well, yeah, let's talk about characters. Let's talk about characters because I think we'll be able to hit on it in this section.
Yeah. All right. How do you want to do this? You want to start with Gustav first? How do you feel about Gustav?
Man, I really liked Gustav. Um, I'll tell you something this game did really well with their characters is humanize them. And I
Mhm.
think, like we could talk about like the different endings and stuff, but like it really made you feel like these characters were all individual people. And I talk about there's a scene with Mael and Gustav at camp where I think Gustav says to Mael, "Hey, we need to go to this place next." Like they tell
Mhm.
you what your next objective is in the game in like 2 sentences. And rather than having like 3 minutes of like, here's the plan, here's what's going down, he says, yeah, we got to go do this in the morning. And then he goes, when I was a kid in Lumiere, and like they talk about throwing rocks and they have
Mhm.
this conversation for 2 minutes. There's just a conversation between a father and a daughter or a brother sister, depending on like how you look at it. Like, um, and it's this moment that really humanizes Gustav as a character and really makes you understand like, oh, these are just people living their lives in a way that
Mhm.
I can't really think of many other games that do that, except maybe like I think Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy IX do that well. Um, are two games that I can really point to. And the Nier series is another one I would say. But
Mhm.
it really made me like Gustav because I was like, man, Gustav is just a guy figuring it out. It might also help that like I'm the same age. I'm 32. I turned 33 in March. Um, and for me, watching Gustav talk about like growing up and the way he's tried to live his life and like him trying to like, he's writing the journal for the kids who come after and like trying to like be a good influence on the next generation. I really connected with Gustav. Um, but it was odd because when he died, and it was the weirdest thing. I had someone message me and tell me to stop playing the game because I was clearly not into it because I didn't cry when he died. When he died, it was all like, oh, so Gustav's the one getting killed. Like I saw it coming that like obviously a character was going to die. I just didn't know it was going to be Gustav. Um, but like it happened and I was like, whoa, that's a hole in his chest. Uh,
Right. So
um,
I had the same reaction, right? I At the moment, right, it was more of a shock than a kind of like, oh, this is a sad moment. It's the, oh my god, I can't believe they killed him off kind of moment for me,
yeah.
right? I didn't feel sadness at that moment. Um the moment I did feel sadness was at the tree, right? When
Yes.
everyone was saying goodbye. That was where Gustav really, it was like, that's where he's dead, right? And
Yeah.
that's where the place, and that's it's a very purposeful thing that they've done, is that um they allowed that the other characters and you yourself as the player to mourn for him at that place,
Yeah.
and they wrapped it with, and now you've successful, I don't know how to phrase this, but you have mourned for that person
Yeah.
and it's time to move on, right? And that was the thing that I think was done really, really well with the connection with the other characters and how it was kind of laid out, is that, and this is the thing that I said earlier, it allowed itself to breathe,
Yep.
right? So yeah, I have similar thoughts about Gustav. I think he was a good character overall. Um, but looking at how the story was out, like the outline of the story, there's no other place besides him being dead in the story
Yeah.
that it makes sense, right? So, he was a way to help bridge the gap between the beginning of the game and it becoming Miles' story,
Yeah.
right? So, I don't want to say he was a plot device, but in a way, it was kind of a plot device to help Mael go through that emotion,
Yeah.
and then kind of
Well,
go
and
through those emotions.
he was there to establish like what the painting meant to Mael, what the canvas was to her. Like when we talk about like endings to the game, you know, if you choose Mael's ending is not about everyone in the painting. Like it's not about Mael being like, oh well, I want to bring everyone in Lumiere back. No, Mael wanted to bring Gustav back and wanted to have like a happy little life with her family. Like that is what Mael wanted.
It was what her wants. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then, did you also see? We're gonna talk.
I've seen both.
No. I've said yeah. But did you notice in Mael's ending when it pans up to the that area where Verso plays the piano at last, right? When it goes into it and goes into the building, you notice all these characters, they're all the same.
Yeah.
See, it was one of those things where it's like it was a very subtle thing where it's like, this is not what everyone else wanted, it's what she wanted, right?
Yeah.
Which I mean, I guess you can make the other argument for Verso, but it's like he wanted his family to kind of mourn for him and let him go, right?
Well, so let's kind of use that as transition to talk about Verso as a character. You know what's interesting about Verso as a character, in my opinion? Lots, but when I beat the game initially, I chose Mael's ending. And I hadn't done all the side content yet in Act 3. And it's interesting that if you go directly from beating the Paintress to Lumiere, that like you have this feeling of like, no, Mael's right. We got to save the painting. Like we've got to save these people. And after you do all the side content, I feel like Act 3 side content really gives you an idea of how miserable the canvas actually is. Like when you find Clea and not like the real Clea, but the painted Clea.
Right.
And like see the state she's in, understanding what happened to Simon, finding Julie's journal entry and finding Verso's journal entry about Julie. Like you find all this stuff that's just so sad and like so broken, I guess is the word I would use. And it's like, I remember doing all the side stuff and then I went and looked up Verso's ending and I was like, man, no, the canvas has to end. Like, we need to process what has happened.
I picked Mael's ending at first, but I knew Verso ending was the ending I would choose, right? But I wanted to see how Mael's ending was. I was like, because I wanted to get that out of the way. I was like, I want to see how she will do it versus how I would have preferred to do it, right?
Yeah.
Which was Verso's ending, right? And with Verso, it was very clear. And this was clearer to me that, you know, it's what you view as what do you consider. This is an ethical question now, right? Do you consider the people in the painting real or not? Right?
Man. So
you see what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I have an interesting thing on this that I find Expedition 33 does a really good job of selling you that they're real because you spend so much time with these characters. And this is what I meant about them being humanized. And and I had a brief discussion about this with a friend. It's interesting to see the online discussion because you have people referring to like destroying the canvas as like a genocide. And what's interesting is Expedition 33 goes through pretty thorough lengths to be like, no, these people are not real. They don't have a soul. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about Dawn Trail. But what I think is interesting is that in Dawn Trail, it is pretty explicitly stated that the people in living memory are their actual souls. Like, these are people who have been prevented from returning to the ethereal sea. These are real people. And the number of people I saw talk about Dawn Trail going, oh, it was no big deal to turn off living memory. They were just AIs. And like this idea of like the presentation of like Dawn Trail didn't sell people on it. Dawn Trail didn't sell people on this idea that it was this horrendous thing to destroy real people. Like, we weren't sending them back to the ethereal sea. We were permanently deleting real souls. And like, but with Expedition 33, these weren't real people. And the game was very explicit in that, but they did such a good job on selling you that they were and making you think that it was wrong and making you go, no, the people in the painting deserve to live. Like, Lune deserves to live. CL deserves to live. And like to bring those people back. And they create that moral question.
Right.
And, you know, we talk about, I mentioned Last of Us before, and it's interesting, when Last of Us came out, there's all these videos online talking about the final decision of that game and talking about how there was no way they were going to make a vaccine. Like, you get these like people coming around being like, no, like it was impossible. There was no moral dilemma here. But what the interesting thing about that argument for Last of Us is that Joel didn't know any of the stuff that they're talking about. For Joel, there was a moral dilemma. For Joel, it's, you know, save his new daughter or save the world. Whether they could have actually saved the world or not is, you know, a scientific question. But for Joel, he thought it was real. And that's the thing with like Expedition 33 and Mael, is to Mael, it was real. Mael was there for 16 years. And they've sold so many people through the story and the characters that they were real. Lune feels real. CL feels real. Whether or not they actually were is second to your feelings and emotions. And that's why so many people did choose Mael's ending, because they're like, no, like, of course I'm going to save the painting. Like, I've been in this world for 90 hours. And it's crazy how that game creates that moral dilemma for you, even though like Renoir says it very plainly that like none of this is real. This is make-believe. Like, the only soul that's actually in here is a piece of verso that we need to let go.
I'm gonna stop you there, because this is where you are taking the games, like, you're taking it very literal, right? And that's what, so when you say Renoir is saying, hey, this is the only, these people aren't real, right? You can also take that as his interpretation of that, right?
Yeah.
And that presents that, because that's what he believes.
It's a philosophical discussion of God, I guess. No, you know,
that's where I'm getting at, right? Because from his point of view, yeah, they're not real. right? And if we're looking at it from our point of view, they're video game characters. They are not real,
Yeah.
right? But if you were in that kind of scenario, in your Lune, is like, what makes me, not as real as you,
Yeah.
right? So that's where, where Renoir even though the game explicitly says, hey, these people aren't real, doesn't mean that they aren't real. If that
Well,
makes
yeah,
sense.
the levels of realness.
Right. Uh-huh.
You know, we've mentioned 14 a couple times, but it's the Emmett Selk argument.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
none of you are as real as what I've lost, you know?
Right.
And yeah, no, you're right. It's this philosophical question of what
What do you consider
does
real
God
or
have
not
the
real?
right
Yeah.
to take away the life of its creations?
Mm-hmm.
Because to him they're not real or whatever. I don't know. But no, you're right. It's like, from Lune's perspective, what makes her not real or real?
Right.
You know, she's had a life, she's had these emotions. But yeah, I guess like when I say like the game explicitly states they're not real, I guess what I'm taking from that is the idea of, we know this higher plane of existence exists in the game,
Mm-hmm.
and that these beings of this higher plane of existence have fabricated this world. And yeah, no, you're making me process something about the game in this moment that I have yet to process. But yeah,
Here and
go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I will say this though, or now that we're talking about the endings, in my opinion, Verso's ending was still the correct choice because of this, right? Let me tell you, I will make this argument and I'll make this comparison. Mayel story arc is very similar to Daenerys' story arc in Game of Thrones, where she becomes like kind of messed up in the end, if
Yeah.
that makes sense, right? In that kind of vein, right? And the first side quest is very, very important. And this is where in Act 3, I'm going to bring this up. It is the most important thing in that game in Act 3, but it's not required,
Yeah.
right? But it should be, because it shows that part of Mael where it's no longer Mael and it's Alicia, right?
Yeah.
And when this is where it's also, this is another compliment I'm going to give the game. It's the body language that they give with the characters, right?
Yes.
And when you have Alicia kind of gomaging, right? The painted Alicia gomaging, I can still see that face of just Alicia just kind of looking down, just like, I did that.
Yep.
Right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's that she had no problem doing that.
It's the moment she steps from being part of the canvas to being the god of the canvas.
Right.
And being the paintress.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, I agree that should have been required. And here's the thing about it, and I'm going to go back to like my discussion on Act 2. They give you those capper quests in the relationship building for almost every character. And this is another thing where I say the game's unfinished. Every character had a capper quest but CL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
CL doesn't have a capper quest, and there's no reason for her not to. And I actually think I know where her capper quest was supposed to happen. I think it was supposed to happen in Falling Leaves. And the reason I say this, if I'm remembering correctly, when you go fight the final boss of Falling Leaves, It is a unique final boss that is not seen anywhere else in the game. It is not a reused asset. But also, it plays like a pre-rendered cutscene of Verso and CL walking up to that boss together. Of like them in their expedition gear. There's another place in the game where it plays a pre-rendered cutscene like that. It's in the Paintress workshops when you go to fight that Lamp Master, and it's Verso, Mael, and someone else. But Mael is notably in her expedition uniform, as if that should have happened in Act 2, even though it's not possible for that to happen in Act 2 because one of the Paintress workshops is in the sky and you need flying, which makes me think there was a world where that was moved into Act 2. And I actually think the reputation system, a lot of these empty areas, I think had they been given more time, rather than everyone having a capper quest, there would have been multiple quests through the reputation system that would have brought you to Yellow Harvest, Autumn Leaves, all these different places. Like, I feel like every couple, you would have had a quest for that character. And the thing is the reason I bring this up with Alicia's or Mael's final story is you are not conditioned to go to these areas to learn more about the characters through gameplay. It's kind of this thing at the end where it's all like, oh, whoa, they have capper quests. Oh, I and like, you don't necessarily know that it's like story important to be like, oh, I need to go do Mael's capper quest. You do, because you're all like, oh, I want to know. But it's like, I feel like if they would have put those quests throughout where you got to know a little bit about the characters, by the time you hit Act 3, it would have been like, oh no, I've got to get Mael's capper quest. I've got to go get Lune's capper quest. I've got to go get Minoko's capper quest. Because you would have been like, oh, this is important. I need to go do these things.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like there was an intention to do that based on the way areas are laid out, based on cutscenes and stuff, and they just ran out of time. And I think there was a world where it was all like, no, it was much more obvious that you should go do Alicia's final quest. Whereas like, it is a totally missable thing now.
Right.
And I agree with you, it shouldn't be. And even in that vein of like at Act 3 things being missable, we get a cutscene of you going around and collecting the soldiers. And I feel like that could have been gameplay. I think there could have been a world where it's all like, no, go back to all these bonus areas or go back to like main areas to collect these soldiers. And like, that could have been a reason to go explore the world. And even if it was like a thing of like, oh, you only have to go to 3 of them and then you can proceed. But like, they could have done a thing of the more of them you go to, the stronger your army gets when you hit Lumiere. And it's all like, you can either go straight to Lumiere and have to fight an insane amount of enemies to go through this dungeon, or the bigger army you collect, the easier Lumiere becomes.
Right. And now that you say that, that's a very good point. I remember thinking that it was when they were like, oh yeah, we can go back and collect all these other chroma that were for people from the expedition or the people that died on the outside of Lumiere, right? And that is a common, revisiting places that you've already visited to.
Yeah.
It's a very common RPG trope, JRPG trope. I always think of Kingdom Hearts whenever I do that, because that's the most memorable for me, right? You go back and do all these Disney worlds at least minimum twice, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go back, and it never happened, right?
Yeah, it just gives you a cutscene. And I remember being jarred in that moment of like, oh, I'm not actually going back. Like, they're just showing me it happen. And it's like, no, I think there was a world where they wanted that to be gameplay. where they wanted
Yeah.
to like build up to the final fight. And it's one of those things. It's like CL not having a final quest, that just being a cutscene. Another thing I point to is chromatics. There is a gestural in the gestural village that tells you about chromatics. He says the same thing no matter how many of them you kill.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get anything from him for killing them all. And like people would go, oh, well, you don't necessarily need a quest for the chromatics. Like you just go get them for the sake of getting them. But 10 feet away from him, there is another gestural who says, hey, if you collect journals, tell me about it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you collect journals and talk to him, he gives you like 20 lumina for every like 5 you get.
Right.
And it's like, oh, so like they know how to design this quest that like is a collectathon. And it's all like, oh, I feel like maybe there was a world where you would have been given a bestiary that like, as you find things, and that could have been like Gustav's journal, you know, of him like drawing enemies as you find them. And it's like, oh, as you fill that out, he gives you 20 lumina every so many. And it's all like, no, like there's these hints that they wanted to design the game a certain way and that they wanted to put these things in and they just didn't get around to it. And for me, Alicia's quest is like kind of the smoking gun of, no, they know how to design the game this way. They know how to put these important things in it. And they just chose not to for all of Act 2 and Act 1 in terms of the side content. And it's like you get to Act 3 and all of the side content has so much weight to it. Alicia's quest, Renoir's drafts, the floating manor with Clea, which like I didn't know anything about Clea until Act 3. Act 3 was the first time I saw her, whereas if you do Yellow Harvest, which is an area accessible in Act 1, they talk about Clea. He talks about his sister that like makes stuff. The ghosts do, and I think you see her in the Forgotten Battlefield. She's the spirit you talk to. And like I hadn't put together that the spirits were the family yet, but it's like there's hints that there's a fifth member throughout the game that you're never pulled to. That it's like, oh, I'm finding these things in Act 3 that I should have been finding in Act 1, but I had no reason to be pulled to them. Like you do in Act 3. And that's the stuff that keeps the game from being a 10 out of 10 for me. And it's like everything that was in the game was perfect, in my opinion. Even like side stuff that should have been main quest stuff. Like I agree with you. I think Alicia's quest should have been a main quest. And where it is a side quest, it's like, man, I really wish they would have conditioned me to do side quests. And not just trust that I'm going to go do this Alicia quest so I can get my level 3 ability. Because that's really the motivation to go do it. Other than like the desire to play more of the game and that you're enjoying the game. Because like that's what drove me to do it. Was I was like, oh no, I'm enjoying the gameplay. I'm enjoying actually playing this game. And I don't know, maybe I've been overwhelmingly negative for the last 5 minutes. And I don't want it to come off as like, oh, I hated the game. It's more of a, like I said, I wish they had a year to cook. One more year.
You wish they did more.
Because I feel like you can see they knew how to do those things. Like there's evidence in the game, and it's like those capper quests for those characters were so good And it's like, man, I wish they would have had the time to put those quests in. And I feel like the reason I know they wanted to do more quests was because CL didn't have a capper quest.
Mm-hmm.
If CL would have had a capper quest, I would have been like, oh, they just decided to have a capper quest for everyone. But it's like, no, they clearly didn't have time. Because why is CL like this forgotten character? Where you just get a cutscene with her.
Right.
And it's like,
And
I don't think... Oh, go ahead.
No, and I was about to say, my thoughts are the same on why this isn't a 10 out of 10 for me, right? There's a lot of, it's specifically about Act 3, right? And it feels like there was a lot more things to do, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Right. And doing that, and it was kind of weird just seeing like, oh yeah, go to Lumiere and you're done. Right. That's why, it was like, it's so important to do Alicia. That's we're driving this home really hard, but it's really, really important to do that, because if you don't have that context, then I don't think you get the same story that I got that if you didn't do it. Right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, and we had a discussion about this offline, about this idea of should we play games to 100% completion? And like we were talking about Final Fantasy 16 and its side quests, and I was like, oh, like I feel like the final quest with Clive and Jill is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And you had said to me, but does it change the story? And I said, well, no, like it doesn't like inherently change the story. And you went, that's why it's side content. And you like kind of like opened my eyes to that. But the thing is like, as we're talking about like Alicia's quest, it does.
That was important.
It does change the story.
Because it makes you decide who you want to pick at the end.
Yeah.
Right? So, because that's what I mean, I still picked Alicia the first time because I was like, I want to see how messed up she's gonna make this, right? But I knew from that moment when, because I saw it in her eyes, I saw it in the body language during that quest. I was like, oh, dude, she's kind of messed up. I was like, what's going on?
Well, and I said the same thing, like I said this earlier. After playing through all the side content, I was like, no, the canvas is messed up. Like, this is not a happy world. And like, I don't even think it's just Alicia's quest. I think it's seeing Clea. I think it's seeing Simon. I think it's like even Minoko's final quest with Noko, and being like, because I remember the whole game thinking like, oh, like the Gestrals reincarnate. Like, these are happy people. And like when Noko comes back and doesn't remember Minoko, and Minoko's like, yeah, we reincarnate, but we're never the same. And it's all like, oh, that's a bummer. Mm-hmm. Like it was this whole thing of just being like, man, this shouldn't keep going. Like, right. This is a world in pain that is being forced to hang on. And I mean, Verso says it in the Mael ending, like he cries. He says, I don't want this life.
Right.
And I remember watching Mael's ending and seeing him up there to play the piano. And like, I say it like I've got the clip on stream of me going, man, she forced him to come back. Like she remade a happy version of him. Like, I was like, no, she's a cruel god. Like, It was a terrifying thing to me. And I don't know if the voice lines change when you do Verso's ending, but when you do Mael's ending, I don't know if you did this. When you go back to camp, if you talk to Mael, her line has changed. And it's the only character whose lines change, rather than her saying the line about, I'm tired of people telling me like I'm a child or whatever, she goes, "Oh, no poems for us today, Verso?" And he goes, "Oh, I guess I'm just not feeling very inspired."
Mm,
And it's
I
like
didn't know that.
this line of like, it's this weird moment of like, oh no, this is like actually post game. This is
Mm-hmm.
like her at camp actually after you've made the decision. And this is her painted version of Verso.
Right.
That's like a little less depressed and a little more okay with going on, but it's still the Verso she knew. And he's just not feeling very inspired today. And it was like, that is heartbreaking.
No, and then you touched it. You said Final Fantasy 16, so I'm gonna bring this up. Um, and you were also talking about Verso. I want to bring up the voice acting in this game, right?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, and I don't know if you're gonna agree with me on this, but this was Ben Starr's. This was his. This was a better performance than he gave Clive, and I think he voiced the Verso way better than he voiced Clive.
So I agree and I disagree, and I'll tell you why. And this will be forever a struggle. And I don't think this is Ben's fault. The second I heard Verso, I knew it was Ben Starr because Verso sounded just like Clive to me.
Exactly.
And part of me wonders if that's not the directors of the game going, "You were incredible as Clive, give us Clive." Like I don't think that's the only voice Ben can do, but I worry that now that he's done it twice, that's going to be forever the Ben Starr
We're gonna find out.
performance. Um and I know he's done other games and I'd be interested to go back, but that was the struggle for me was, do I think Verso was a better performance than Clive? Yes. Do I But I feel like it was Clive 2.0, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't feel like Verso was a unique character to Clive from a performance perspective. I think the writing was unique, and I think Verso is a different character than Clive for sure. But like performance-wise, I couldn't separate Verso from Clive. And that is where I go, yes, I think it was a better performance than he did for Clive, but it was also more of Clive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I can see where you're going with that, but I feel, and this isn't entirely Ben's fault. None of this is Ben's fault, right?
Yes. Like that
This
that's
is
what I'm saying.
this is all on one direction that they're given, and two, the script, right? Ben was given a lot more emotional scenes to kind of stretch his acting prowess, I guess you would say,
Yes.
in Expedition 33 compared to Final Fantasy 16,
And yeah,
right?
I'll say that. The acting superb in every
Mm-hmm.
moment. I don't think there was ever a moment where I was all like, "Oh, that could have been done better." Like, I'm not saying that in any way. And I mean, we talk about Alicia's quest and that being important.
Mm-hmm.
Like the performance from Ben there of being like, "Yo, wait, you didn't give me a chance to say goodbye," and like that whole conversation,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
No. And what really was I want to point this out. This scene is probably going to be my favorite scene from the whole game. It was the scene where Alicia or Mael, sorry, excuse me, same person. Where they or Mael and Verso, uh, Verso's playing the piano, right? And he entertains Mael, and Mael, goes right next. They're just going back and forth singing a song or playing the piano, and I thought that was and if you take that scene out of the game, I don't think much would change. But I think that scene was really, really well done acting wise, right? Because going back to the humanization part of it, right?
Yeah.
It humanized and it built that connection between the two characters. For Mael, Jennifer English's character, Mael, and her voice acting, it was really, it was different than Shadowheart. But to be fair, Baldur's Gate 3, it's kind of a D&D type of game, so it's not, nothing you can. It's a different type of voice acting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Um, but with this one, I think this might. I was looking. I think this is her second game. I could be wrong, but this is one of her like notable ones, at least.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just say that. And she gave a fantastic performance. Right. It's the little things. It's like the voice cracks. Right.
Yeah.
That they give. Going back to Ben Star when it was Alicia, when it was the Mael ending, when it's like, let me die, right? It was, that's where I was like, this is the better performance than 16. But again, not to Ben's fault. It is the direction of the game and what you're given, and you have to act on it, right? So and this
let
isn't
me
a
ask you
bagging on
this.
Final Fantasy 16, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to preface that. I liked Final Fantasy 16. So
let me ask you this. Who was your favorite performance in the game?
Oh, who was my favorite performance?
Yeah.
That's a hard question.
I've thought about it a lot, and I know mine.
You go ahead while I think about mine.
So, for me, my favorite performance was actually Renoir.
I was gonna say that too.
And Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about this a bit more later. But I would really love to see Renoir win Best Performance. And there's kind of a couple outside reasons for that. But Andy Serkis he's known as this really incredible motion capture actor. And what's funny is he didn't even do the motion capture for this game. He just came in and voiced it. But Andy Serkis has gotten snubbed over the years because he does these incredible performances, but then like mocap isn't allowed to be nominated for like Oscars or stuff like that. And I'd really love to see Andy Serkis get his flowers. Because one, it's an incredible performance, but I'd love him to get his flowers and be like, oh, the video game world actually loves what I do. Let me do more video games. Like,
right.
But the thing is like, because he plays two characters. He plays painted Renoir and he plays real Renoir. And the way that he does both of them so similar, so the same but different. That it's like, no, like painted Renoir was the same person, but like he was sterner, he was a little angrier. Kind of the way Alicia or Mael says, like, oh, Mama painted an unflattering picture of him. Like she has this different idea in his head, and then like he turns around and he is still stern, but you can tell there's a love for his family.
There's the caring tone, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than like this desperation that the painted version had. Like the painted version was like, I want my family back. Like I need this kind of thing. Where like the unpainted version is like, I don't want to lose another member of my family.
Right.
And the way he's able to play both, and like you see it's the same person, just like a different side of him. And it's like, the only other character we really get that with is Mael. You talk about that scene with the body language where it's all like, oh, there's this moment of like, you see her shifting. But the thing is that mocap wasn't Jennifer English. That mocap was a different person. And it's like, for me specifically, the vocal performance of Renoir, I feel, was just so good.
Right. And I want to give flowers too to, I know I mentioned his name earlier, Charlie Cox. For a guy that literally went in the studio for 2 days, he did a pretty damn good job
Yeah.
in 2 days, right?
And that's the thing, is everyone did so well.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, you look at Minoko, and Minoko did really well. Even as like kind of this more comedic relief character, like, he sells it so well. Lune does a really good job. Mael's really great. Gustav's really great. Like, even Esquier, you know, I know there's a lot of people who are going to say Esquier is their favorite performance and favorite character.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I don't think there was a bad performance in the game, which, like, I know sounds like a normal thing to say, but like, even among like NPCs and people you talk to for like 2 seconds, everyone was voiced so well. And I can't think of a lot of games where that's true, you know? I feel like the voice acting for this game was handled with so much care and so much love, and the direction was really good on all of it. And it is hard to pick a favorite performance. But yeah, I give it to Renoir.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to give it to Star. I think Verso's performance was really good, and it's really a tie for me between. It's actually a triple tie between Mael, Renoir, and Verso, right? Well, go figure, because they're the three most important characters in the game, right? But yeah, no, it was. It's, and honestly, I think, you know, we're talking about awards. We're gonna be talking about awards pretty soon. The Game Awards is in December. I think they just announced the date. I wrote it down here, December 11th, right? So in about 5 months time, roughly, we're gonna be talking about that again.
4.
Sorry, math. I can do math. Uh, but we're gonna have discussions on who's gonna be, like, you know, the best performance, right? And it's gonna be stacked. And I honestly think for Expedition 33 in particular, I think this is going to be a very similar situation to Baldur's Gate 3. I think God of War did the same thing, where it was basically a sweep.
Yeah.
Honestly, those are the only two games that I can think of that were sweeps, basically, in the Game Awards.
Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm. They were effective sweeps, right? But I think, because, you know, best narrative, they're probably going to get that. You can make, okay, independent game, I'll let you handle what you consider.
Yeah, so we were talking about this earlier. I think it should win best indie game. But also, I'm not super in tune to the indie scene, but it reminds me of a couple of years ago when Dave the Diver got nominated for best indie game, and it caused a big stir because it wasn't an indie game. It was funded by a much larger company. And it created this whole kind of discussion of like, well, is indie games like more of an aesthetic? Like, is it kind of that pixely small game feel? Is it a mechanical thing? And the interesting thing is, Expedition 33 is an indie game, but it's an indie game that pushes to look like a AAA game.
Right.
Or at least a very high tier AA game. And it's like, well, is indie game about budget? Is it about aesthetic? I think for the longest time, we all thought it was a budget thing. We thought it was like how it's published, how it's developed. And I think it should win best indie game. But it's going to be interesting to see if there's like another controversy of, oh, well, we thought this game was a little too nice to to be thrown in with all these other games that are
Right.
maybe 5-10 hour experiences. And I could see it causing controversy at this Game Awards. We'll see in 4 months.
Yeah, I think it's what they classify as. I think I don't know if Jeff Keighley's ever put that out there. Was like, what do they classify as an independent game?
And that's the
Right.
thing, is it's a bit ambiguous, and that's the trouble.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's going to be a sweep yet. I think amongst people who played Expedition 33, there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, this is the greatest game ever." And I think it is deserving, but the first day I streamed it, I had a ton of people come in and tell me they're like, "Oh, this is my game of the year." And I said, "I don't know if it's going to be my game of the year yet, obviously, because I haven't played it." And people were like, "Oh, well, what would you put against it?" Like the question was thrown at me. They're like, "What could possibly be better this year?" And my list was all like, well, I know a lot of people really enjoyed Monster Hunter World when it came out, and there are people still playing it, and it's getting updates and stuff. I know Death Stranding 2 was going to be a huge release that's happening this year. Ghost of Yotei, there are tons of people who think Ghost of Tsushima got snubbed for Game of the Year when it came out. So it's like, can its sequel come out, or is that going to be another game that people are thinking is getting snubbed? I know last year Silent Hill 2 Remake was up for Game of the Year, if I remember right, which I don't think a horror game has ever won Game of the Year. But a lot of people talked about that shouldn't win because it's a remake. Silent Hill is dropping its first new Silent Hill title in several years with Silent Hill F. And if you're in the horror game community, you know how much buzz there is around Silent Hill F looking like it's going to be the most terrifying game of all time. And a lot of people think it's going to push the genre forward in a way that hasn't been done in 20 years. So like, I could see an argument for them being like, no, Silent Hill F pushed the horror genre in a way that it deserves to be talked about for Game of the Year. And those are just games that are on my radar,
Right.
So it's like, do I think it's deserving of Game of the Year? Absolutely. Do I think it has zero competition? No. And I do think it's unfortunate that, and you said this yourself, you went into the game knowing nothing about it. And when you first saw it, you were like, oh, another JRPG that I'll probably never get to.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think there is that sentiment with turn-based JRPG games where it's like, there's a lot of people who will never pay attention to it. Like, there's going to be a whole crowd of people that sees this game get nominated for Game of the Year that goes, what the heck is Expedition 33? Why is this game in contention with Ghost of Yotei or Death Stranding 2? These games that everybody is aware of, whether they played them or not.
I don't think it's going to be that way this year, because this is, I think this is a little different, right? Because everything that I've seen, maybe I'm just living in my own bubble, right? And this could be it, but I've seen people that hated JRPGs and they played Expedition 33 and they loved it, right? And you've probably met a couple people who've never played a JRPG.
I know.
And they loved it. Right?
And that's the thing, is like, there are things, well, and you talk about being in the bubble, because I've wondered if I'm in a bubble. And in talking to my brother, he loved it. And he's like, I think it should win Game of the Year. But his response was, I'm not seeing the hype around it. I'm not seeing people talk about it. And I'm all like, oh, he exists outside the bubble. Like, his social media feeds or whatever, he's like, yeah, he's like, I love the game. I don't see anyone talking about it. And it's all like, oh, that's interesting. to hear the perspective of someone outside the bubble, and maybe his feeds are just different. So it's hard to tell, you know, it's hard to tell if we're just in a bubble or not. And that's why I say, like, I think it's wholly deserving. And it'll be interesting to see if it is the first JRPG. And that's not necessarily a great title to give it, because I know there's issues around the term JRPG. But like, you know, Baldur's Gate was turn-based, but I think Baldur's Gate, you know, was an exception, because I was talking to someone about this. Baldur's Gate sold like 20 million copies. One of the best-selling games of all time. And the thing is everyone I know who talked about Baldur's Gate didn't go, oh my gosh, it's the greatest turn-based game ever made. They talked about the characters. They talked about the story. You know, they talked about how much they loved the world of it. And what's interesting about Expedition 33 is so much of the discussion I saw around it was around it being turn-based, you know, and people talking about the gameplay. We haven't even talked about the gameplay of it yet tonight, but it's so odd that, like, and I know there were people who didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to spoil it for people because they thought the story was so special. But it's so odd to me that, like, with Baldur's Gate 3, I saw so much discussion about the characters, and I saw people posting these fun moments that they loved of, like, interactions with Astarion or interactions with Shadowheart and stuff. And it's like, I don't see people post about that for Expedition 33. I don't see people post fun moments of SGA or stuff like that. Like, that discussion has felt so under wraps. I just heard the loudest thunder I think I've heard in the last, like, 15 years. Like, I thought something just crashed into the side of my house. It was like, I thought something fell down in a room or something. I had to pause for a moment. Hopefully we get some of the much needed rain we've been needing. Sorry about that. You don't have to edit that out. Keep it in.
No.
But yeah, I mean, so maybe that's the bubble I'm in, is that I'm not seeing those kind of things. But, like, what are you seeing in, like, the online discussion and the discussion?
The opposite from you. I've seen the narrative stuff.
Really? Man, so it's so interesting, like, the bubbles we're in. But yeah, I'll be really interested to see the flower, like, what flowers it gets when the time comes. I could see a world where it plays the tune of Alan Wake 2. Where Alan Wake 2, if you remember at the Game Awards, won Best Direction, but didn't win Game of the Year. Like, I could see a world where it gets best. And, like, I think if you look back, Alan Wake 2 won more awards than the game that got Game of the Year that year. I'm trying to remember what game it was that year. If it was Baldur's Gate or if it was Elden Ring that it was up against. No, because Elden Ring was up against God of War Ragnarok. And Elden Ring did win both awards. I think it might have been Baldur's Gate. I think it might have been... Was last year Baldur's Gate 3?
It was Astrobot.
It was Astrobot, that's right. So yeah, it was up against Baldur's Gate 3, I think. Man, now I've got to look this up. Alan Wake 2 Game Awards.
I think you are right. I think it was BG3 that same year.
Yeah, 2023. So it won narrative. Am I understanding this correctly? Oh no, this is showing me all the awards, not what won. No, best.
You can look up the game. Let me see.
Oh no, yeah, Alan Wake 2 won Best Narrative. Um, and I think it won Best Art Direction,
And game direction.
and studio game direction. But Game of the Year went to Baldur's Gate 3. So I do see a world where like Expedition 33 is this game that sweeps the awards and gets like 6 or 7 awards, but doesn't win Game of the Year because some juggernaut like Ghost of Yotei that sells 25 million copies gets Game of the Year. But like, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see.
I have a different opinion because I think this game is one of those games that come out and it's an influential game that everyone will look to that says, hey, this is a turning point.
So here's the only reason I disagree. Because I agree with what you're saying. I agree that I do think this game is a turning point. But I had a friend, she made this wonderful video talking about Final Fantasy and that discussion of like Final Fantasy needing to go back to turn-based. And she mentions Expedition 33 and how there's been this big discussion in the Final Fantasy community of like, oh, take note, Square Enix, like this is the game that's going to bring back turn-based combat, and doing all that. And she brought up that exact same discussion happened 6 months ago with Metaphor ReFantazio. And then Metaphor ReFantazio just kind of disappeared and fizzled out. And it's this, at least within the turn-based community, every year or so, there's this discussion of like, oh, this is the turning point. We're so back. Like this game's gonna change it all. And the thing is like, I want to believe it's true about Expedition 33 because Expedition 33 truly is that phenomenal. But I wonder, is it us in our bubble of liking JRPGs and loving this style of game, or if this game has truly broken out of that mold and reached a new audience. And I think I fall back to the sales numbers of, we haven't seen them announce it crossing 4 or 5 million yet.
No, so mine wasn't turn-based at all. What I was about influential.
You're just saying in general.
No, I was saying the way that games are made and the attitude towards these games that are being made. That was how influential it is.
You're talking wider industry.
Yes.
Than just the genre that it's in. So that's, I think, yeah, I agree with you there. Because I think the interesting thing is the way that they've pulled off what feels like a AAA game on what was reportedly an indie budget. And this was a game that largely, it's that speech when Baldur's Gate won Game of the Year.
Yes.
Do you remember that speech where he says, I don't know the name of the next Game of the Year, but it'll be a game where the developers made the game they wanted to play, where they weren't focused on return on investment and budgets and stuff, but they were worried about making a fun game and a good narrative. And, I think you talk about Expedition 33 being that turning point. And I guess in my mind, Expedition 33 isn't that turning point. Baldur's Gate 3 winning Game of the Year and him giving that speech was the turning point. And Expedition 33 is the result of that turning point. And we're going to start seeing a lot more games like Expedition 33 because maybe some people took that to heart. But I could also see Expedition 33 being a turning point as well. Like I agree with you. Like when you put it that way of like industry effect. And I guess I wonder if the industry is noticing it as much as the gamers are noticing it. And I think there probably is evidence that they are, because, you know, the devs of Expedition 33 went and visited Square Enix. They went and visited these other companies. Like, I think devs are noticing, if that makes sense. I wonder if the people who fund games are noticing. Because like we talked about last week, like the way games are funded is fundamentally broken right now. And if we could get more Expedition 33s from like a funding perspective and like a less bloat in the company and letting devs make stuff and giving them the money to do it, that would be wonderful. But has Expedition 33 proven to the people it needs to prove to that that's what needs to happen?
That there's a fine line to walk on that though, right? Because you can someone could also make the same arguments like they did that with how many people?
Yeah.
And we made this with this many people. Why couldn't we do that with this many people?
Yeah. Well, and you know, the question is the conclusions that get drawn from that, because it's
yeah, exactly.
Like it's a double-edged sword, because depending on who notices it and asks that question, they go, wow, they just made an awesome game with 33 people. We have 300. We need to lay off 200 people because apparently it only takes 100 people to make a great game. Like, exactly. You know, there could be negative ripples from that idea. And, you know, there's even been this narrative that the game was made by 33 people, and Sandfall has pushed back on that and actually said, no,
there's a lot more.
There was a lot more, and it's dangerous to say 33 people made this game. Specifically because of what I'm talking about right now. Sandfall was like, no, don't go lay off staff. We contracted a ton. And I mean, you watch the credits, and is it the 45-minute credits of like a Sony game that has 4,000 people on it? No. But a couple hundred people touched this game.
Right.
And so, yeah, I 100% what you're saying, like that idea of this many people made that game and it was great. Why aren't we making great games? Like, I think this game has potential to be a really good influence on the industry. And it really comes down to what lessons do certain people learn from it, you know? And I think it'll be interesting to see a year from now or 2 years from now what ripples this game's caused. Because I definitely think it's causing them. I think you're right. And I think that is, you've honestly given me the best argument I've heard for why it deserves Game of the Year.
Because of the influence.
Because of the influence it's had. Because everyone else I've heard talk about it has been like, oh, well, like it's narrative or like it's gameplay or the way like it's bringing turn-based back. And it's like, no, like all of those things in a vacuum, like have challenges. Like I can tell you Ghost of Yotei is going to have a narrative that is probably going to be on par. It's going to be different in the way it's on par, but it's going to be on par. Because I know what Ghost of Tsushima was. Like, Death Stranding 2 is going to have a narrative on par. Gameplay-wise, I think there will be plenty of games that, like, really just are incredible to play and fun. I would say Elden Ring Night Rain is up there from, like, a gameplay perspective of, like, this fun, engaging experience. But I don't think I can think of any game other than, you know, I mentioned it about Silent Hill F, but I think that's going to be influential within its genre.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's going to be influential on the wider gaming landscape.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so you've given me much to think about. You've given me much to think about. Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
No, like you mentioned a good point. It was the thesis, it was the hypothesis, it was the thesis of what Larian Studios said in 2023, and it was proven, right? That this is why, there's a reason why Astrobot won Game of the Year last year and people were complaining about it, right? Because like, I didn't play that game.
Yeah.
Why did it win Game of the Year, right? Well, it was a good game. It was a good platformer, and it was pretty influential in like the platforming, kind of sphere. But it's like Baldur's Gate 3 had that same kind of, I'm gonna say aura here, right?
Yeah.
There's an aura that this game has that I don't know if other games can match this year.
Yeah,
makes sense.
It'll be interesting to see. I've still got lots of games to play this year. And, I can't wait till we have a discussion in like the end of November. And we're asking ourselves, like, is this still Game of the Year for us?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I even, as silly as it sounds, I see a world where if I am still as obsessed with Uma Musume in November as I am right now, that's my Game of the Year, because it managed to keep that obsession for 8 months. Like, there's something to be said for that. But I think I 100% agree. Like, I came off of Expedition 33 and I said, no, this is special. Right. And it deserves Game of the Year. The true question is just how many other special games are possibly going to come out this year. Because like, I look at the year Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and like, I think if you played Baldur's Gate 3, there was no question in your mind that it was Game of the Year. But also when you look at the games that were nominated that year, like Alan Wake 2 was just as deserving. Alan Wake 2 was an incredible game, and it was a similar thing of like, no, that sent ripples through the industry because Alan Wake 2 wasn't profitable. And Remedy was like, we don't care. We made this game because we wanted to, and we're going to keep making games because we want to. And everybody was like, Remedy, who are you guys? Like, it'll be, I've said it like 5 times, but it'll be interesting to see.
Do you want to know the interesting part? What you just said though, is that during 2023, I did not hear anything about Alan Wake 2.
Really? Well, so I will say this: Alan Wake 2 came out October, so it was the end of the year, and a lot of people have actually said the reason it didn't beat Baldur's Gate 3 was because Baldur's Gate 3 had been out longer and more people had played it.
See, that's also another aspect too.
Is that this year. This is earlier in the year and has more time to sit. Because that's always a discussion. Like, it was a discussion with Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok was like the tail end of the year. And Elden Ring was like February. So we're going to have to revisit this discussion in 4 months and see how we feel, man. Right. But I could see a world where my opinion hasn't changed, and I can see a world where my opinion has changed. Like, that's the, do I choose the Mael ending where the canvas keeps going and wins Game of the Year, or do I let the game lie where it went and I choose the Verso ending?
Yeah, exactly. Is there a life beyond that? Right. So,
there are some awards though that like 100% I see it being a shoo-in for best soundtrack.
Oh, easy.
Easy.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, narrative. I think it's probably going to win best narrative.
Best
That
role
is one
playing.
though. I think Yote might hit with something, and Death Stranding might have been better. I still need to play it, but best role playing game, easy.
Yeah.
I even think there's a world where it wins best action game. Because it's kind of merged those two genres.
Right, and there's also best performance.
Best performance. I see best performance is another one where it's like, man, those performances are incredible. But I also know, like, even without playing it, I know Death Stranding is going to have contenders. I question if Yote will. I question if Yote will have any individual performances. Do they give a best leading and a best supporting?
It's just best performance.
Just best performance.
I don't know. As of the past years, I don't know if they're gonna split that up. I honestly do think they should split it up.
Yeah.
Right?
So here's a question: if they do best lead, how many people do you think are able to be nominated for that from
6?
From Expedition? No, like
lead.
Like I'm saying, like
okay, let's
like Mayal and Verso.
Okay, let's. Oh,
that's what I'm saying. Like Mayal or Verso could be nominated as best lead, but I think everyone else is considered a side character.
Yeah, I think 2. Yeah, that's how I see it going. So, but I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. The awards are, like I said, 4 months away. So it's quite a while. There's still a lot more time left in the year. So, yeah. And I know we wanted to talk about gameplay, but I kind of want to pencil it right here. The reason for that is because I know in the next episode we're talking about Dawn Trail, but the episode after that, I do want to touch, or any future episode beyond that, I do want to touch on, there's one particular topic that we did not talk about, and that is turn-based games and the connection to Final Fantasy and the 2 of them. But I think that deserves its own separate siloed episode.
I think that could be its own episode. Yeah. I think that's something we could talk about later. I think to wrap up everything we've discussed, which is kind of hard. If for some reason you listen to this whole podcast and let us spoil a ton of stuff about Expedition 33 for you, which, like, honestly, I don't know. Well, we did spoil a couple big things. We did spoil a couple things.
Spoiled the end. We spoiled all the twists and the ending, so it's a lot.
But, like, you know, we kind of spoiled it out of context. If for some reason you listen to this whole thing and you haven't played Expedition 33, go play Expedition 33. It's a really good game, and I think all the issues I have with it are issues of things that I wish were in the game. There was never a point where it was all like, oh, this shouldn't have been in the game. This is a drag. I wish I wasn't doing this. Every piece of that game is fantastic. You should go play that game. You should do every bit of side content in that game, because all of it's fun. All of it's great. It's a 9 out of 10 for me, which I can only think of a handful of games that have hit 10 out of 10 for me. But to give you a comparison to other games that are a 9 out of 10 for me, Bloodborne, Hollow Knight, Final Fantasy 16, Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us, like, it's one of the best games I've ever played. It's really high chance to be the best game I've played this year. Go play it. Go play it. If you've already played it once, go play it again. Go play it again. It's got New Game Plus mode.
And I've talked. If you listen to the other episodes too, you've heard me talk about how much I love this game. So I'm not gonna go on and say that again. But go play it. It's great. Um, yeah.
Well, this has been our first gaming book club or game club episode. We're gonna do more of these. We're gonna talk about more games. Our next episode after this one is most likely going to be a gameplay episode about one of our favorite games, Final Fantasy 14. But thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us for a couple hours. As always, enjoy more games. Thanks for listening to the Game In podcast. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe, and hang out with us some more.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone.